So we'll start off with the background and scope of the Release 2 project that John Molnar, EC process owner, will give, and then go through a summary of changes of the PR process, CR process, and CN process. And then we'll go into more detail into what's new for configurator document changes in general, in the CR process, and then in the CN process. After that, we'll have a 15-minute break, and then we'll demonstrate the new functionality with a CR and a CN in Teamcenter, and walk through a change to a 3051 HT model, giving it a new red housing option. And then we'll wrap things up close to 9:45 and finish up around 10, and show you where you can find resources to find the updated work instructions, the training material, and then the recording of today's session. So I'll turn it over to John to talk about the background and scope.
All right, so hopefully some of you guys have seen this before, but this is kind of the global engineering version of the BPH vision. So the BPH vision, for those of you that are aware or aren't aware, is this idea for us as a global company to be able to sell, deliver, build, supply, and design anywhere. We have 37 different sites around the world, and we all need to be able to work together to be a profitable global business. So majority of BPH has been focused on this idea of sharing our customers, our facilities, our suppliers, our parts and designs, and our resources. And a lot of this is going to be done through the implementation of a global instance of Oracle. But there's another piece to this, and this is where engineering really plays a role, is to be able to share these things, we have to have a common foundation. And so the things that we've talked about within global engineering from the BPH perspective is having a common foundation of how we do our parts and BOMs, how we have our model structure, our drawing, our engineering processes, and our engineering systems. And so this Teamcenter release is really about preparing us for that foundation. Okay. So I mentioned Oracle. Most people, when they hear BPH, they associate it with Oracle, and Oracle is a part of it. Oracle is one of the tools within the BPH realm. But that realm really only covers the physical and financial assets. It doesn't cover the engineering aspect of the business. And this is where Teamcenter plays a role. Teamcenter is that tool that will allow us to control all of our engineering-related material, our CAD stuff, our data security, our drawings and documents, our items, how we manage our engineering changes. And so this is where this release begins to incorporate with the Oracle system. Okay. So another piece to this is, Teamcenter is that tool. And the thing that we're trying to get towards, the objective here, is to become a company that has a PLM system. Sites like RTR have done a better job of getting towards this, of moving away towards a drawing-centered universe. Here at RTC, the drawing is kind of the center. Everything is related to the drawing. And we use notes in our drawing to associate to different requirements and documents. But the idea of moving to a part-centered universe by utilizing a PLM foundation, a product lifecycle management system, is have that part be the center. So very similar to like a file structure, the part would be the top. And so here we have a part number there in the center of the screen. And with the system, with the PLM system, all these different things can be associated with that part number, whether it be a CAD model, visualization file, project documents, drawings, requirement documents. All these things should be related to that part. And so that's how we get to the part center of the universe. And Teamcenter is a system that will allow us to do this. And it's part of this bigger picture of getting to this PLM system, to a PLM environment. And to do that, we have a series of things that need to be accomplished. And with Release 2, we're able to get a large portion of these checked off. So our part management, being able to do BOM management, being able to do engineering change within Teamcenter, and also having drawing and document management within there. And having control of how we change and revise these things to workflows. And then another major piece of this is how we are able to integrate our Teamcenter system to our Oracle environment. So with this release, I kind of alluded to this, but this release has really been about creating functionality for our part and BOM management our engineering change process, and that integration from Teamcenter to Oracle. Now, the catch here is that Release 2 is just about creating this functionality. So we've gone through over a year-long process to develop all this functionality and get it in place and put this into the Teamcenter environment. Now, the catch is that not everyone's going to be able to utilize this because not everyone is on Teamcenter. So Teamcenter is just the creation of this functionality. And I think if you go to the next slide, we have the, so, you know, with this Teamcenter Release 2 project, we are here at the end. We've gone through all of our testing. We've wrapped up our, you know, the final bit of our testing, and we're going to go live next week. And those people that are currently in Teamcenter using it for the management of our PCS documents are the ones that are going to be impacted right away. Now the next slide. So this, you can kind of see here, this slide is really showing kind of the roadmap that we need to follow to get to that PLM system, that PLM world. Right there in the middle is our Teamcenter Release 2 project, which is wrapping up here. And so the people, you know, directly impacted are people who are here in the training. But eventually, through Release 3 and Release 4, we'll be able to roll Teamcenter out to other users and begin using it for our the way that we manage our items and BOMs and our engineering change process. But all of that is stuff that's going to happen in the future, and that we've taken the time now to develop all the functionality for. But as I said, since you guys are already in Teamcenter using it for your management of PCS documents, we need to get you up to speed on the changes that will impact you come Monday. Okay.
Thanks, John. So we'll move into a summary of changes from a high level of the EC process for PCS documents. So our configurator documents include 3 new document types. Our PR process has no significant changes. CR process has minimal changes, the most significant being an updated red line markup functionality, and 2 other changes to improve the method of communicating a disagreement with the change proposal, and then a new step to update the change proposal for the CRB review. The CM process has a more significant change as it's being split into 2 workflows, the release and implementation tracking workflow. The CN implementation process also includes a new role defined as the lead implementer that will be responsible for coordinating the change and setting the implementation date, pulling it back in once the changes are implemented in the system. There's also a new step where the change analyst will be able to review the document updates from the red line markups before the CN is released. So going into more detail, I will start with what's new in general. So our configurator documents include 3 new document types. There's a new target completion date on CRs and CNs. We've switched to a change pending and a release pending status and flag. We have a new 2-week due date to complete tasks in CRs and CNs. And there's new attributes on documents, CR objects, and CN objects. So 3 new documents are in scope for the EC process: the routings worksheet, build location rankings, and the tag requirements. The routing lead time worksheet is for the efficient information transfer of routing and lead time logic from design and marketing groups to PCS. The location rankings worksheet identifies the manufacturing sites that can build a particular product and the warehouse sequence to use when an order is placed for the product. And the tag requirements worksheet defines the tagging parameters of a model, included with information on the type of tag available, the number of lines, the character limits, the characters allowed. In Release 2, we are adding in 2 new drawing types for part and bill of material changes, the drawings and the specifications. We won't be using these until Release 3, at a large scale, but we are splitting up the definition of a PCS document into both the document type and the document subtype. So these attributes will be used in configurator documents now to define the document. So in summary, the build location rankings, routing worksheet, and tag requirements are now in scope. And contacts on these documents or the configurator requirement documents can be sent to the change analyst team or your PCS product key contact. Okay, there's also a new target completion date attribute where SMEs may set the target completion date of a CR or a CN and communicate that with downstream participants. So this communicates a need by date for the engineers, given a reference that is available directly on the CR and CN objects. This attribute may be set during the creation of a CR or CN in the Summary tab, or in the Summary tab, or the change is routed to the Change Analyst. And the target completion date drives different activities on the CR and the CN. The target completion date for the CR drives the change review board approval. So this is once the CR is finished, once everybody signed off and said, okay, let's go forward and make this change effective. The target date on the CN is when the changes are implemented in the business system. One more note on the target completion date is that it does not drive anything in particular in Teamcenter, but as a reference to communicate when reviewers and implementers are working with the change. So this will not drive any emails or any other system functionality. Okay, the next step is that there is a new change pending and release pending status and flag that are applied to items when they're in a CR or CN workflow. When an item is in a CR, a change pending status will be applied with a white flag and a exclamation point icon. This is replacing the review status that was given with a yellow flag. And when an item is being processed in a CN, a release pending status and flag will be applied with the same icon. So these are a more industry standard way of notifying, of indicating that this revision is undergoing a change. A new change can't be made until the rev receives a checkered flag and finishes the CN release workflow, and the item rev and data sets are locked while the CR and CN is in process. This has the same meaning, and this is the same meaning as the yellow flag in the current process. The change pending status is applied to items in the impacted items folder of a CR while it's being processed, and this will keep the impact analysis team and the change review board from changing the documents within the CR workflow. The release pending status is applied to finalized document revisions in the solution items folder of the CN, and it's applied to documents during the CN release workflow. And we'll go into more detail on what exactly the CN release workflow is later, but note now that it's not during the implementation workflow. It's just before the item is approved and given a checker flag. Okay, the next change is that there is now a 2-week due date on Teamcenter tasks. If a task has not been completed after 2 weeks, an email notification will be sent to the user notifying them that their task is late, and then the task will turn red in your work list. If you see that some of your tasks are red after go live, that doesn't mean that there's any issues with the task or the workflow. It should be able to process normally. It's only indicating that the task is late with this 2-week due date. These due date notification emails have no correspondence with the target completion date attribute. And again, the target completion date will not drive anything in Teamcenter, but it's just a reference. This is standard out-of-the-box functionality, 2-week default deadline on tasks, and has nothing to do with effectivity of the change. All right. Last thing in general is that there are new attributes on the documents, CRs, and CNs. So because the PCS document is now defined by the document type and the document subtype, a document subtype attribute is now required when the document's created. There's also an attribute for agency approval that will be used for part and bill of material changes, and this is not a required attribute, and NA will be the only value that is available when the configured document type is selected. On the CR, we have the new target completion date attribute, and this will be optional. On the CN, we also have the target completion date attribute that is optional, and another attribute called implement to Oracle org. So this attribute is required for part and bill of material changes to indicate where the items will be published to, where the items will be pushed. So this is a required attribute because the CN workflow needs this attribute to indicate what to do during the steps where the items are pushed to Oracle. So because of that, this attribute must be set to NA before the documents are routed. So when the CN is derived from the CR, or when a CN is created, this attribute will need to be set to NA. This will be included in the work instructions that are being updated. We also have new attributes on the CR and CN search for closure, maturity, and disposition. And these search options make it available to search for an open and closed status, or to know the location of the workflow, or to search for items in a particular location of the workflow. Okay. Are there any questions about that before we move on? Okay. So moving on to the CR process, we have one more significant change with updated red line markup functionality, and then an improved method to communicate disagreement with the change proposal, and a new step to update the change proposal before the review. So we are now using an industry standard out-of-the-box markup object. And this markup object is attached underneath the data set of the final revision in a PCS document. The SME will attach the markup in the first step of the CR workflow in step 100, same time that they're doing it today, but they'll do it with a new drag and drop procedure. So they'll first select the item in a local file, drag it and drop it on top of the existing data set, and then set the data set type reference field to markup. So the markup was previously attached to a new revision of the document in 100. A new revision had to be created so that the redline object could be attached as a data set. But since we're attaching the markup as a markup object, a new revision is no longer needed. So the markup is now being attached to the current revision of the document. So previously you would see this during the CR workflow, an item without a checkered flag, meaning it's being processed, and now you'll see more clear way where the item revision has a checkered flag. It's the finalized current revision, and then the markups for the next revision are placed underneath here. So one implication of this is that the markup history is now located in the prior revision of the item. So if you're looking for the markup of Rev AB, you would look under Rev AA. Since the markup is attached to the current revision, again, a new revision is not created during the CR phase. And since the new revision is not created in the CR phase, nothing is now placed in the reference items folder. So when the SME is completing the 100 task in the ECR, they'll populate the impacted items folder like today, and no longer put anything in the reference items folder. Okay, moving on. We have an improved method to communicate disagreement with the change proposal. We're now using out-of-the-box functionality so that change review board members can choose to agree or disagree with the proposed change using the selection box in Teamcenter. If a disagreement is signaled, then a reason will need to be entered in the comments section. By choosing to disagree, you are not canceling the change like in the current IREV and ECO process. So if there is a disagreement, the CRB chair will be responsible for coordinating with the members of the CRB and making a decision. And when the CRB member disagrees, the workflow step will become red. All right, and the last step in the CR is that a new step is added so that now SMEs can change the proposal in case any concerns are brought up during the impact analysis. So this will make it possible. This will take out any recycling of the CR that it would need to go through by sending it through rework in case the impact analysis raised any concerns. So if somebody finds something wrong with the document, the SME can update it here, send it on to the change review board with those changes, and then they can make their decision with the updates. The markups will be unlocked during this step so that the SME can make the changes here. Okay, and in the CN process, we have a more major change that the CN is split into two workflows, the release and the implementation tracking workflow. The CN implementation process will also include a new role defined as the lead implementer, and then the change analyst will be able to review document updates from the red lines before the CN is released. So the two workflows now in the CN phase are the release workflow and the implement workflow. And the release workflow will be owned by the SME, and the implement workflow will be owned by the change analyst. So the SME will finalize the documents, the CN release workflow, and the items will be released to production. Once that's complete, the items will be initiated in an implement workflow, and then this separate workflow will be used to track the implementation activities that are done to make the change effective. The first step in the release workflow is that the SME will create an ECN, and then when they submit it to workflow, they will have two options. They release the implementation workflow, they'll select the release workflow. After they complete their first task of the CN release to perform the design changes to the items, there will be a new task where the change analyst will be able to review the document updates that were made from the markups before the items are released and approved. This is called 202, sign off finished items and repair release package. So in step 200, the SME will update the PCS document red lines to a final version. And in step 202, the change analyst will review the SME's changes from the markups to the final item. And there's a new work instruction on this that will be available for change analysts. So after those two steps are complete, the ECN release workflow will be complete. And then the document revisions will receive an approval status and will be checked flagged. And then the ECN revision will get an on hold status and this orange flag. So now the SME's work is complete, and the SME can track the implementation of the workflow in the workflow viewer after the ECN is added to the task to track folder. So the CA3 will receive an email after the ECN release workflow is finished, notifying them that the ECN has been released and the changes are ready to implement. This email will give them the ECN number. They'll use that to find the ECN. They'll start the implementation workflow, and then they will determine whether or not to assign a lead implementer for this implementation. If they don't assign a lead implementer, the change will be a one-step implementation. And this will be the same as the current process, where everybody will have one task, and they will complete their implementation activities, and there will be no step to coordinate the implementation. If they do assign a lead implementer, then there's a two-step implementation. And the lead implementer is responsible for ensuring that the tasks required for implementation are complete, and they will make the stage changes live in the business system. They're going to be the ones that set the implementation date in the first task in a two-step workflow, and then track the changes. And then once every implementation activity is complete, they'll pull the implementation date back in. They'll say, okay, the changes are implemented, and this is ready. The lead implementer will be the primary Oracle owner, unless the ECR specifies differently. And the change analyst use the PCS config app support and global contacts matrix to make this assignment. And they keep this matrix up to date with PCS key contacts. So once the implementation workflow is started, there's going to be two tasks, the ready and the go task. If a one-step implementation workflow was selected, then only the 271 task will be performed. If a two-step workflow is performed and selected, then there will be the ready and the go task. So if during the two-step workflow, PCS will stage their changes in the business systems, manufacturing and everybody else included with the updates will get their changes ready, but they won't make them final. And then once everything is finished, the lead implementer will pull back in the implementation date, and this change will be implemented, and this will be the go step. Once the implementation is complete, the change analyst reviews the implementation, conducts a quality review, make sure everything is complete, and then closes the ECN. So in summary, there's two phases for the ECN, the release workflow and the implementation workflow. The SME performs the ECN release workflow. CA3 performs the ECN implementation workflow. And this gives us the ability to prepare the business systems for the change and better manage the implementation.